Well, here we are doing another video blog or vlogging, as the kids today call it.
We're not kids.
Well, I know we're not kids, but the kids today call it. The youngins that are still popular, and which we're not either of. But our subject today is reboots.
Reboots.
And why that sometimes, occasionally, they're okay, and other times, mostly, they're terrible.
Suckish.
Eyeball-destroyingly bad. Yeah, sometimes we have issues with reboots.
But not always.
Not always. Prime example of ones that turned out okay was Star Trek. We all like Star Trek, right? I mean, the phasers and the ship and the... You didn't like Star
Make it so, number one.
Make it... Not that Star Trek. That's further in the future. We're not at Picard yet. But anyway, you know, Star Trek.
But as we were discussing earlier, there's a reason that worked.
Yeah. The reason that worked was basically just a small, simple plot device kind of thing where you just take crazy Romulans and send them back in time, you know, chasing Spock, and they accidentally go through a black hole and come across Kirk's dad's ship, and they blow it up, and instead of Kirk's dad being alive, his dad dies trying to save him. So, you know, Kirk still looks born and everything, but it alters the galaxy ever so slightly, so it's a whole different timeline. You have all the same people, all the same characters, but things happen slightly differently. So basically, you just rebooted the entire Star Trek franchise from scratch. You can do the original series, you can do the Next Generation, you can do pretty much all of them. Anytime you want, you can recast the whole thing. And it's that simple thing that made it work, you know what I mean?
That one simple divergence.
Yes, exactly. But it didn't destroy the original timeline. I'm sure that's still happening somewhere. It's just separate now. It's two parallel alternate universes. It's like it's a mirror universe, but there's no evil people with goatees. At least not yet. But then that begs the question, if they do bring in the mirror universe in the future, is it a mirror of the mirror universe? So it's an alternate mirror universe? But then how does that work?
You're making my brain hurt.
I don't know. I'm getting too deep on that one.
Okay, so reboots that suck.
That list is a lot longer. Well, most recent one, and the thing that comes to mind right now is Superman Returns. No one liked Superman Returns, did they?
I didn't care for it at all.
No. And why didn't you care for it, Timmy?
It was boring.
Exactly. It was dull. They made Superman look really dull.
Does he still stand for truth, justice, all that stuff?
Superman Returns.
Not only dull, but they made him pretty creepy and stalkerish.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
I don't know about you, but I don't want my superheroes who can move planets and, you know, lift 200 quadrillion tons and fly and shoot laser beams out of their eyes to be floating outside of my window, you know, staring with his x-ray vision through the walls.
Dude.
At my family.
But you know, if you could do it, you would totally stop.
Well, I totally would, yeah, but that's me. I'm the fallible human. Superman is supposed to be held to a higher standard than that. And him
supposed to be.
But him floating outside the window just like, it's like, he was only a few steps from just going in there and like bitch slapping the, you know, Lois's boyfriend, whatever, and stealing her and be like, but I love you, you're mine, you know. So that was kind of unnerving.
It sounded like some East Texas trailer trash.
I know, he should have been wearing a wife beater with like a mustard stain or something. And just he's in like his
B
boxers.
for Bubba.
He's in his boxers, you know, and he's got like a wife beater with a mustard stain, but he's still wearing the cape and the boots. And he's just like, I didn't have time to put the whole thing on. Come with me, baby. We're going to go get her done, you know. He takes her to his Fortress of Solitude. And it's a double wide. Deep in like the mountains of West Virginia or something. Instead of, you know, in the Arctic where it normally is supposed to be. That's if he was redneck Superman. Which he could have been if he didn't land in Kansas. He could have, if he landed in Alabama or Mississippi, would have been a different story.
So, the general consensus we were talking before we actually started recording was reboots, they're kind of a double-edged sword. They can either be really good or really terrible.
Yeah.
Now, give me some examples of what you feel are good reboots or are good movies within a universe that are not exactly reboots and why they're not. Like we were talking about the Dark Knight trilogy.
Well, I was saying I don't really consider like the Dark Knight trilogy as a reboot because it's just basically it's just the same story, rehashed a little differently, with a different director's take on it. I mean, that really, because they're just awesome movies. They stand alone on their own. I don't know. I mean, I guess it has to technically qualify as a reboot. I was thinking more like hardline reboots, like where they just take a movie and just directly remake it, like the Red Dawn, where it's like, hey, you know what? That was cool in 1984.
So now let's have Thor be the leader of the Wolverine.
Exactly. And the Russians were the bad guy, but now
No, but they're North
are gone.
Koreans, right?
Yeah, but the funny thing about that is the movie was on the shelf for 3 years because originally they were supposed to be Chinese. The Chinese were invading because it was the last, big, huge communist country, and it's like, we were kind of an antagonist.
So what are we afraid we're going to piss them off and they're going to call their loans?
That's kind of... You're not far off, Timmy.
It reminds me of a Metallica song. Sad but true.
Because of the international market where they try to sell these movies worldwide and the worldwide grosses count towards the gross of these movies, because without that you can't really continue to make these movies. It's the cost of them. They knew the movie was going to be seen in China. Who's going to want to go watch a movie where your country is portrayed as the villain invading another country? I mean, the Chinese, they would just kill the whole Chinese market, and that's like almost 2 billion people's worth of possible dollars, you know what I mean? So
really,
they changed it to the North Koreans because no one cares about North Koreans. Pfft, whatever. So they had to go back in and digitally change all the uniforms and all the subtitles because, like, you're going to know what they're saying in Chinese anyway. They could just redub it to Korean. You're not going to know the difference because we're Americans. We're idiots. At least I am. I don't know. You might know, but whatever.
why don't we say that we're uninformed?
We're uninformed. What's his name? The guy who played Thor, whose name I can't recall right now.
Chris Hemsworth.
Chris Hemsworth, yeah, the guy with all the muscles and the hair, looks like a surfer. All the chicks are hot for. Woo. Anyway, which I wish I had abs like that. I'm sad now. But anyway, he's in the movie, and this is like 3 years ago, so this movie's been sitting on the shelf, and I'm just expecting it to do horribly. It's just going to be a turd nugget of epic proportions.
I think because of the whole reason that the terrible Transformers crap and even, the Star Wars prequels, I think one of the reasons that the 80s stuff is so very popular right now is because the Gen Xers like you and I have kids now that were about our age whenever this stuff came out. So, I'm thinking, I've got a son who's a teenager. I'll take him to see Red Dawn. I took him to see Total Recall, which wasn't a terrible movie. It felt like it was missing something, although the cat fight was epic.
See, there's two things about Total Recall. I liked it because they expanded on the wife's role in the movie. The original, she was just kind of a throwaway character where it was like...
Yeah, I don't even remember.
They shot her and Arnold was like, the divorce, and you were like, yay, Arnold! He killed another person and had a one-liner. That's great.
We're married.
Consider that a divorce.
So her part was awesome. They gave her a meaty part, and of course, I believe, wasn't her husband directing the movie?
Maybe.
So that's probably why she got a bigger part. But anyway, yeah, I like that part. What I didn't like, what you said was missing, was freaking Arnold Schwarzenegger, man. The one-liners. When he shot her, and it was like, I'm sorry. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. When he shot her, I kept waiting for him. I'm like, do it. Come on, dude. Come on. Just be like, consider that a divorce. Oh, like Colin Farrell, cool. But he didn't say anything. And I'm like, oh, man. He was missing one-liners.
You got a lot of nerve showing your face around here, Hauser.
Look who's talking.
Well, but he did have the one where he's like, that's your wife? And he's like...
This is my wife.
You're married?
I think it's safe to say we're separated.
It is, I guess maybe it's not the same.
Because it's not cheesy.
A little bit. Sometimes they have to be cheesy. Imagine if they remade Big Trouble in Little China.
I can't imagine that.
But eventually it's going to happen.
You think so?
Come on, dude. They're remaking everything.
You ready, Jack? I was born ready.
I understand the nostalgia for the 80s, but what's wrong with showing your kids or the youngins the movies from back in the day?
You know, I just
Nothing
had
wrong with that
I
movie.
had this horrible thought. What if they try and remake Goonies or Gremlins?
It's coming. I'm telling you. And that's why reboots are terrible. Because they go back in, they tear your childhood from your chest, and stomp on it and tell you it's not good enough. We're going to redo it.
All in the name of the almighty dollar.
The almighty dollar. Because
Well,
you
see-
can't just let a movie be a classic.
Well,
like, for example,
Go.
Spider-Man. The
But-
Amazing SpiderMan. They stopped doing the fourth movie to it's only been 10-year span to do it all over again. And it goes back to an origin story.
But-
admittedly, it wasn't a terrible movie.
It was way better than any of the original three.
Still,
I thought.
you didn't have to reboot it. You could have recast it or whatever, but it still had the same story.
I'm going to have to disagree with you respectfully on this one. I thought the reboot was so much better simply
I didn't
because
say
of the
it
way
was-
it was cast.
I don't know, my point isn't that it's terrible. I liked it. Just the fact is did they have to reboot it already?
We're sick of it.
Yeah, it's a little.
We're sick of reboots, in case you missed the memo.
It's a little. It's saturation, really.
What do you think the Vegas odds makers are putting for the next thing from our childhood that they're going to destroy? We won't even dignify Michael Bay's crap with TMNT.
You
We're
can't even
not
call
even
it that because it's.
we're
They're
not-
not even teenagers. They're not mutants. They're just Ninja Turtles.
Michael Bay sucks.
Michael Bay does suck. But the next one that's on the list, I believe, is Masters of the Universe.
The most powerful man in the universe.
Okay, do you think in this one that He-Man is going to be in the closet as well?
He-Man is a little gay. Actually, no. He-Man's pretty straight. It's Prince Adam that's gay.
Fabulous secret powers were revealed to me the
Come
day
on,
I held
that
aloft
dude's
my
gonna
magic
run around.
sword.
They're
With
going to
a-
find out about my secret.
With a bowl haircut thing and that pink vest shirt thing he had on, with the little fuzzy groin pants and the fuzzy boots. What guy who's not gay wears that? And he's a prince? Come here, prince. That's just right there. Yeah, exactly. He's Prince Adam. It's super gay. But then he changes and he's like, I have the power. And of course the symbol is a nice big long
Phallic thing.
phallic metallic thing. And then he turns out he's wearing even less clothes. And he's just always got the loincloth and the boots. And he rides a cat that goes from a cowardly, shaking tiger to this manly lion. Arr, I'm Battle Cat. You know, come on. But yeah, they're going to remake Masters of the Universe. We're going to hate it. But because we're nerds, we'll go see it anyway.
I might not.
You will.
Matinee.
See, but you're still watching it.
I think I'd rather see, if they were going to do stuff like that from when we were kids, I think I'd rather see Voltron.
Who wouldn't want to see Voltron? That would be awesome.
Unite!
Yeah, the Japanese have a kind of a pattern, don't they?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
It's robots, monsters, and monsters fighting robots, and robots fighting monsters.
Oh, you mean like the new Godzilla that's supposed to be out next year?
Yeah.
And how many times have they rebooted that?
Because who doesn't like radiated, large 200-foot monsters that breathe radioactive fire and destroy cities? Yeah, I was thinking of all the movies that are just in danger. Like, these aren't nerd movies, whatever, but the stuff that I remember watching as a kid, like The Breakfast Club.
Well, see, and we were talking off camera, too. It would be so hard to do anything like that. The Breakfast Club, Ferris Bueller's Day
Ferris
Off.
Bueller's Day Off wouldn't really work because the advent of cell phones and social media. Everybody, he couldn't help himself. He'd be posting everything he did. He'd be checking in everywhere. He'd check in at the Cubs game. He'd be like, look, I checked in. And someone would check his feed and be like, look, Ferris checked in at the Cubs game. And the principal would find out, and he'd get booted out of school, and he wouldn't graduate, and it'd be an entirely different movie. It'd last 10 minutes, and it'd be sad.
Either that or the jackwagons would like trace his GPS in his phone.
Exactly.
He knew exactly where he was.
There's certain movies that worked in the time that they were made in. And that's what I guess ultimately kills me about reboots is that when the movie was made, it was a snapshot in time of what things were like then, and you go back and watch it, it brings you back nostalgically to that point, especially if you remember it and you lived it.
Oh my! Like Weird Science is now a period film.
Exactly. People watch that now, they're like, that computer couldn't make that chick. There's no way, dude. You'd need like a Pentium with the 5-core mega gig 5 blood with the thing, and you need like a server room with the thing. It wouldn't work now, and it didn't work then, but I mean, it was silly. And you liked it. And plus, they'd be like, isn't that movie that Robert Downey Jr. was in before he was Iron Man, man? Yeah, I think that was it. I'm just saying, I mean, it just... Certain movies just wouldn't work now.
The shower scene.
Like Fast Times at Ridgemont High. It's
30 years.
Celebrated its 30th anniversary.
That was my skull. I'm so wasted.
And you watch it and you're like, Spicoli, and you're like,
whoa.
Yeah, aloha, Mr. Hand.
You dick.
You know, hey, bud, let's party, you know?
Oh, gnarly.
And you're like, it was awesome. And you were like, you know, admittedly, I was only like 7 when it came out, but, you know, I watched the reruns on cable and TBS, and every time it's on, I'm like, oh, dude, I still gotta watch that.
Bill, what? Strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
A sequel, a third part to Bill and Ted?
Yeah, who cares about Bill and Ted now? I don't want to see old Bill and old Ted.
But at least it's not a reboot.
It's not a reboot, but some movies shouldn't get sequels either. But a movie that should have gotten a sequel that's being rebooted is Robocop.
Robocop absolutely should have been a sequel.
Because you could have done the sequel. You could have brought in Peter Weller. He didn't have to be in it for very long. You could have had 5-10 minutes on screen at the opening, like him trying to still be Robocop, but he's all broken down and beaten up and old, and he hasn't had like an OCP upgrade in years, and he's all like last gen technology, and he tries to like do the dead or alive, you're coming with me, and he opens his leg and he goes to get his gun and it flies out of his hand and his arm falls off and he's like, you know, and he starts smoking. So they have to like upgrade him. So it's still Alex Murphy. They take out his brain and the whatever chunks of him that are left and they put him in like a new
whatever
cyborg badass
chunks of him
high tech body that they got now. So then you could recast the guy playing Robocop, but it's still Alex Murphy, and you have that connection that people make going, oh, it's still, because they see Peter Weller, and automatically your brain's going to go, Robocop.
Right.
And then you see the new guy, and you're like, it's still Robocop. And you're going to think of Peter Weller, and it still technically would be him.
Looking for me?
So they would work, and then you could bring in his son, who'd be now an adult. His son adored him because his dad was a cop.
Yes.
So his son wants to follow in his dad's footsteps. Son's a cop. They end up being partnered together.
Hollywood. Are you hearing this?
Robocop has no idea that it's his son. And he's just like doing his Robocop stuff, you know, and it just an off chance, he just does the thing and still puts the gun back in his leg and he's like, yeah, we got it done. And the son's like,
Dad?
Yeah, and it's a poignant moment. There'd be emotion and there'd gunplay and explosions.
Robocop.
And, you know, there'd be explosions. And there'd be Ed 209 where you're just like, you now have 30 seconds to comply. You know, there'd still be that. You could have a whole new villain or whatever, you know, but it'd still be Robocop.
Explosions.
Explosions, right? Because he doesn't like explosions. But they didn't do that. Right?
Oh my God.
Let's reboot it.
We can't let Michael Bay hear that.
God, Michael Bay, he's just...
Suck it, Michael Bay.
We like explosions.
We like explosions.
We don't have anything wrong with explosions. We just like the occasional story between the explosions. You know what I mean? Where there's a reason for things to be exploding, not just they're exploding because they blow up. That's pretty much what Transformers was. It was just one explosion right after another.
The first one wasn't terrible. I can't say... It wasn't good.
No.
It wasn't terrible. I can't say anything like that
Well,
about anything else.
I mean, it was all right. I mean, I liked it. It wasn't terrible, like you said. Because, I mean, it was Peter Cullen, so... Had Optimus Prime in it, and he had that sweet monologue at the beginning, before time began, there was the cube, and you're like, I love you, Optimus, because you remember when you were like 10 years old, and you were like, I had all your action figures, man. But then they went off track and just lost it, and there were explosions, and there was no story. And then Megan Fox and her weird thumbs. They're not even thumbs, they're like toes on her hands. They're not even really thumbs. They're fat and they're toe. See, everybody, even the pretty people, have a flaw. She just happens to have alien thumbs. and no acting ability.
And no ability to act.
Yeah,
you beat me on that
one. But, it's whatever.
We got to wrap it up.
Yeah. So that's why we don't like reboots. Because they're just, more often than not, they're done terribly. For every Rise of the Planet of the Apes, and Star Trek.
But wasn't that more of a prequel?
Yeah, but you're restarting the series, so it is technically a reboot because it's going to probably eventually bleed into a new Planet of the Apes sequels after that. So I'd consider it, on the fringes of rebootism.
Okay.
On the fringes.
You guys, thanks for listening to us stammer for so long.
Blah, 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 blah.
And look for more.
Geek Rangers approved.
And good night.